Welcome
to the Bring Me to Life podcast.
It's time to wake up
and shine on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bring Me to Life podcast. This is episode number 232. It's an exciting day. As always, we have the lovely Shannon John.
Hello, hello. Thanks for waking up and shining on with us. Excited for today's episode.
Yeah, we have a wonderful guest, someone that we've had on multiple times, and somebody that we really enjoy working with. She has really awesome, cool energy, and she does really great things. She's also going to be a part of Shine Online Festival number 3.
Which you'll want to put in your calendars for 2/22/22, which is a Tuesday.
Yeah, and if you are listening to this in the future, hello, future travelers, you can probably still listen to it and watch Shine Online 3. Maybe we'll be on Shine Online 100 soon.
Oh, man, that takes a lot of effort, but hopefully you can check out the one that we're working on right now. And yeah, so I'm excited. How are you, BP?
Hey, I'm BP, the astrologer pal of the podcast and also the counselor. And I'm very excited to chat today about all things astrology and very cool numbers, and also very excited to be involved with the Shine Online Festival because it's just going to be so uplifting. Excellent. Mm-hmm. How are you all?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. Yeah, it's been a great time, getting into 2022, and it's going by pretty quickly, but I think we're doing a great job. We're getting things rolling, it seems, right?
Yeah, we just got back from a weekend with the Pigment Sanctuary, another fun crew that we enjoy supporting. They had a painting retreat in West Virginia. We got to learn how to oil paint portraits, which is something that I'm not as familiar with painting. So feeling pretty good about it. Got to chill in a hot tub, got to see some friends I haven't seen in years because of everything going on. And yeah, I can't complain. I'm living life right now.
Yeah.
Sounds lovely. So jealous.
Do you ever paint, BP?
I don't think I've ever painted anything that resembles any living or recognizable object in my life.
It definitely is it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, oil painting was even harder than I expected. I used to paint in oil, but never really portraits. So it was a learning experience even for me as a seasoned painter. So. Yeah,
but we were getting out of our comfort zones and, doing things that helped us to expand and things that helped to uplift us, which is a lot of what Shine Online is about. And I think, a lot of people, we're all going through things. So an event like this to help us through it, I think a lot of the workshops are very uplifting. They're not bypassing. I know that's been kind of a keyword, a hot word for everybody. And so it's not about trying to get rid of the hard times or ignore them or block them out or whatever. It's about accepting them and being empowered by them. So yeah, I think that's a lot of what Shine Online is going to be about. And all three of us, we all have some workshops, things that we're doing. So I'm excited to talk about all those.
Yeah, I think Shine Online is fun because it gives us something to look forward to, especially because we've been doing it in the colder months. My workshop's going to be on finding your voice. What's your workshop going to be, Sila?
My workshop is on how creativity can help you through anything. And what will you be doing, BP? What will you be part of in Shine Online?
We'll be talking about self-empowerment through astrology, particularly evolutionary astrology, and the lunar nodes, which are my specialty in astrology. And I love them so much because they can provide us some much needed guidance when we feel lost or stuck, or our direction in life is shifting and we need some concrete guidance from the stars and from our birth charts to move forward in a way that feels more fulfilling on a soul level. Sometimes I call it the spirituality astrology crossover, although that's not a very technical definition. So yeah, we'll be doing that. We'll be doing a tutorial too on how to get started with that and seeing your birth chart for the first time.
Yeah, that's, I think, something that I was kind of unfamiliar with. I'm not too familiar with astrology, so I'm really looking forward to this and being able to have someone kind of lead you through how to get started is wonderful, especially like what kind of website would be helpful. There's probably a lot of them out there.
I'm excited to just learn more about the nodes. I recently learned more about my big three, which was like eye-opening for me. I've always just been like, oh, I'm a Leo. But then when I learned about my rising and my moon, I was like, this makes a lot more sense. But the nodes, they're kind of like the next step, because I'm like, I have no idea. I've heard you talk about them and other people talk about them. So it'd be nice to understand them better. And I know you're going to go more in depth with that during Shine Online. But I am curious, while we have you here, what got you into that area specifically? Like, what drew you to the nodes? Because you said it's your specialty. You can have a specialty in astrology. I know there's a lot in astrology.
Yeah, you can have a specialty in astrology. You could have a specialty in really any field. Could be your favorite thing, or the thing you've studied the most or practiced the most. And the whole draw for me to lunar nodes and this more soulful component of astrology that we'll be talking about for the festival, it was appealing because I also am a spiritual type person and had a lengthy spiritual awakening, had a prior business doing Reiki healing and energy healing, and was just very involved in the spirituality situation. And so astrology then can be more mathematical, or perhaps a different lens than spirituality, particularly like pop astrology or pop culture, where we talk about our personalities or who we might like to date. Very useful information, like for sure. Yeah. But I felt that I wanted to experience more of the soul, or the deeper information that could be taken from a birth chart or whatever you do it in astrology. And evolutionary astrology can provide that angle, where it looks at the birth chart as not just the personality, but the soul's journey over many lifetimes, including this one. And that sort of aligned more with my personal practices, if you will.
So does that include like multiple lifetimes? You're probably born, I would think, different times, right? How common is it to like be born on the same date in different lifetimes?
Oh, that's a very good question. I would say uncommon, but I don't actually know. It more so shows the overarching theme in past lives, if one believes in them. And if not, those placements still apply to our very early childhood as well. I'm referring to the South Node, which is one of your lunar nodes, but they don't show the information about like the actual date of your birth, but they can tell you maybe about the time period or what was going on, what you were up to, and what your soul learned and mastered in that life, and what it's brought with it that you can now use to your advantage. But I wish I knew everybody's like old birthday from a past life. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I was just curious if they would like add up, you know, like I don't like.
That would be neat. Interesting things. So what style of astrology do you resonate most with? I believe we've talked about this before in various things, discussions, but I sometimes have people when I'll be like, oh, we're having a, you know, like an Aries full moon. There's always somebody that's like, not in my world, it's this kind of moon. I'm like, oh, it's okay. You're going through a different astrology style. It's all good.
Okay. Well, are you asking which type of like traditional or modern astrology or evolutionary astrology?
Yeah, I think that's the basis of what I'm asking. Because I know that there's different types of astrology, like tropical and like, yeah, I don't know all of the names.
Yeah, most of the differences between things like tropical zodiac or the sidereal zodiac, or even house systems, which are means of dividing up a birth chart through time, or traditional astrology versus modern astrology or Vedic astrology, most of it is calculation-based differences. So how we calculate time, or how we divide the sky into its zodiacal quadrants, or where even the start of the zodiac changes between some systems in Eastern or Western astrology. But in my view, neither is better or worse. They're just different means of calculating the same information, the same sky, the same stars, just starting in different places. I personally have studied pretty much all the types of astrology there are because I love it, but also I like to have a comprehensive understanding in case I'm working with others who use different types of astrology than me, but eventually landed on evolutionary astrology, which takes the tropical zodiac, and I use Placidus and whole sign houses. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I believe so. Like I said, I recently have just had some different friends that they resonate with different kinds. And the girl I'm thinking of specifically, I asked her what her son, like her big three were. And she's like, well, technically it's this, but I study it this way. And I believe I resonate more. And I think she was resonating more with what she called the sidereal version and said that felt like more of her inner soul. And I was
Sidereal.
yeah. And I was like, this is neat. I've never heard someone say, well, I am this kind instead of this kind. And that's just what I resonate with. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool that there's access to all these different ways of calculating and looking at the stars. They're all very valuable. It just kind of depends what your purpose is with astrology, like what you're trying to learn or what you want to accomplish in astrology. That usually dictates which system will work best for you, which is, I think, kind of empowering. It's just, what do I want to do and what suits that best? And then you can have it with all the information out there in the world today.
So I'm kind of curious, like, about, because you kind of mix it in with some counseling, which is like part of your thing. So how did that part come about? Did you get into counseling first or astrology first? How did you mix those together?
Question. I could see why that might be hard to imagine how they cross paths because they're just different parts of life. The counseling came first. My formal education and college education is in psychology and counseling. And so my career path started as a counselor, like one-to-one mental health counseling with clients that way. But it was still missing some of the components that would make my soul feel very much that it was on its mission. And the things that I was doing outside of my counseling work were more spiritual type of activities, including energy healing and astrology. And so over time, I learned that combining all of those things felt the most full as a life path or a career plot twist. And so I went ahead and just mingled all of those skill sets together to what I do now, which is astrology mixed with counseling. And also some of the skills one learns in being a counselor are generally just helpful for interpersonal relations of any kind. Things like styles of listening or just holding safe spaces and being educated in ethics and holding space for trauma and other things. So sometimes it's just those skills are being used. And sometimes we're also providing guidance from a counseling standpoint besides just the what the chart says. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you intermingle the things that, bring you joy, like helping people with your like doing so both from your education and from your kind of more spiritual education, I guess is the best way to put that. I know I briefly mentioned before we hopped on the recording that I found it very interesting going back to school for naturopathic medicine. We're kind of learning about how most of the founders of naturopathic medicine as we know it today were also astrologers, and the instructor kept pointing out how they were astrologers, and I found that very interesting. I'm still, like I said earlier, trying to memorize all the names and all their purposes and gifts to the world, but it's interesting how like you were saying, many thinkers, they're typically astrologers as well, and people who are expanding that kind of consciousness and awareness in so many different ways.
100%. There's a lot of overlap in history with philosophers and astrologers, with scientists, with physicists, with mathematicians, which we were talking earlier about how that involves just the way society was structured a bajillion years ago. Certain people, particularly male people, had access to higher education. And so to be, an astrologer a long time ago, one also had to be educated in things like astronomy or science and physics and math. And now I'm learning even more overlap.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. I liked that the instructor pointed that out specifically, that they were a lot of astrologers, not even just astronomers, but astrologers, and that they had different beliefs in astrology. So,
what's the difference between astronomy and astrology?
Do you want to take that one, BP? Is that a thing you want to touch on?
Have you talked about that before?
Yeah, there's some people say that they're not related at all. I find that astrology doesn't exist in a complete sense without some astronomy. Astronomy is the science, the study of the planets and space, basically. I think we all know kind of the general situation. It's studying space. Whereas astrology is studying the correlation between the movements of the celestial objects and human events on Earth over all of history forever, and then using that information to then infer things or tell us something about ourselves, our life, or even predict future events based on those patterns of past events. Whereas astronomy is simply observing what is in space, and then astrology is using symbolism, archetypes, and celestial movements to make predictions and things about humans.
Mm-hmm.
So astronomy is the science, and astrology is the divination of that science.
Yeah. They're both definitely go together, though. It would be hard to do astrology and maybe not know what Jupiter looks like. And some of the timing there and orbital stuff and math, it's all intertwined.
I think one of our earlier podcasts, we talked to, is it Benjamin Bernstein? Is that his name? He talked a lot
Benjamin
about the difference of astrology and astronomy, which I think that's when I learned about it too. It was still in my 20s when I was oh, they do seem to go hand in hand to me.
Yeah. So Nostradamus, I know, made a bunch of predictions. I think using one of those two. Do you know much about Nostradamus and if he used astrology? Because you're saying astrology is you were making predictions based on the alignments of the planets, and I felt like that's what he did as well with his book.
I've got no super valuable educational input on that, but I'd love to hear what you know.
Yeah, I don't know much except for apparently he made a bunch of predictions and some of them came true. So it's pretty interesting, and I think he probably used astrology because he was a big into the celestial bodies and predicting things that would happen when certain stars and planets were in certain alignments. It's all stuff that really kind of I don't have much of a grasp on. So
well, I happen to have a book that someone gave me called The Prophecies of Nostradamus that you can check into.
I mean, that sounds really awesome.
Someone randomly found it and was I feel like you need this book. And it was funny because I was at their house and it was just laying on a counter. And I was so what is this book? And they were I feel like you need it. It's literally laying there for you. I was makes sense. So
I love that. It was your book.
Yeah. So we'll have to check that out.
Cool.
So speaking of predictions and things happening in the sky, what are some things and transits that are most helpful for us in the now? Anything you want to touch on or speak about?
Well, sure. I think there's two big things that I could share that would be encouraging or something we could take advantage of, in the sense energy we could use to feel better and have an excellent time. At the time we're recording this, and at the time of the Shine Online Festival, we have just come off of two planets, retrograde, Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde at the same time in the winter in 2022. And that was seemingly difficult for most people that I interacted with. And that makes sense. And I won't spend time talking about retrograde activity. There's a whole lot of content about that exists anyway. But I bring it up to say that those have ended. Just a few days ago, the Mercury retrograde period ended. And all of the planets in the sky right now are direct, meaning moving forward in the direction they usually go from our view here on Earth until April 29th of this year, 2022. That feels good after the planets have done retrograde things and after kind of just like a long, difficult winter. I think we can all agree on that. And so while all the planets in the sky are moving forward from our view, we can use the same energy. We can mirror what they're doing and use that to move forward and manifest and take action and go forward like the planets are, rather than having to slow down, which is what we were doing in the past months. Doing a lot of reflection and reassessing and redoing things from the past, or just re-experiencing people, places, and things from the past. Now we can move forward in a more active, like fiery, energetic type of way, with the planets mirroring that for us. And that's very nice. That will not be happening for the rest of 2022. So this would be a very opportune time to utilize that energy and move forward on your goals and manifest and do all the things. You know what I mean? I have another transit as well, but it's larger. I want to know how you guys are feeling post-retrograde. Like, how was that for you?
It's been an interesting adventure. I don't know if I've had as much past things as in people and experiences come up, but I've had a lot of maybe control dramas and things that have showed up in my past before kind of play out in different ways with new people, and just really kind of pushing through that kind of energy. And I feel like usually during like Mercury retrograde, I'm like, oh, it's like not that bad. Technology's not that bad. But this time technology was just really fighting me. And I did feel like I was going backwards in that sense. So it's exciting to move forward.
Yeah, the technology was definitely rough. And I can say that since both of those retrograde periods, Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde, we're moving at some points through the sign of Capricorn, it adds a serious energy to all of those events and the things we're thinking about, or perhaps very serious technology troubles or anything of the sort. It brings like a sternness to it and a little bit heaviness that can come with Saturn, or occasionally sadness. Just there's weight, and it is very serious, some of the things that can go on. But soon those planets will be scooting on out and moving into Pisces in the next month, which should feel more dreamy, ideally more relaxed, and be more fun a little bit too as we move forward.
I like fun. I'm all about the fun. The dark times are a little harder, but I think worth it when you like get through them and can feel that. But I was going through a lot of pain, I feel, physically, like during the retrogrades. Almost like each chakra point had a few days or even a week of like pain. So it feels good to like kind of get out of that and start to, because I feel like if my body's healthy, then like everything else is all right. Because when something hurts or like something's in pain, it's like it takes all my energy, like sometimes. So
I've been feeling that. My shoulders have been killing me. It does just take a lot of the excitement out of the day.
That's awesome. Awesome that it got better, basically.
So it's exciting. It's a good time. Like Shine Online's happening, and everybody's pulling together to do some uplifting and empowerment, and it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, super exciting. You said that there was another happening in the sky that is important right now?
Yes, there is, and it's good news. I love when I get to be the bearer of good news.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Thank you for
last few
bringing.
years, I've had to be the bearer of Saturnian trouble coming from the sky. It's just, it's always rough. But this
Yeah.
time, I get to bring some good news. Thanks, planets.
Yay.
So, like I said, those retrogrades are coming to an end. They do have something called a post-shadow period, which is a time afterwards that is like a lesser version of what we experienced during retrograde. I call them retrograde light or diet retrograde, which is probably a very messy phrasing, but it's echoes of what happened during the retrograde periods. And those will be coming to a close, both of them, by March 1st. And so after that, it gets even more clear in terms of retrograde fog. But there is a longer term transit that's been going on and will continue for a while. And that's Jupiter in Pisces. That started December 28th of 2021. And it will stay there in the Pisces until May 10th, which is the day when things start happening with Jupiter moving into another sign, and then things get too many dates to mention, but we'll keep May in mind. And Jupiter in Pisces is very nice. It happened for about a month or 2 months last year in 2021 in May, June, and July. Some people describe it as that first time when we were allowed to maybe go back to the beach or go to a restaurant or, just feel more light and free in those moments. And although things went back to being more restricted as Jupiter moved into Aquarius, we can take that as a little bit of a preview of what's going on now. That lightness to it and the expansion of what we can do, because at that time we were expanding what we could literally legally do, at least here in the United States. So Jupiter as a planet, we should mention that. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, of growth, of abundance, of optimism, of positivity. It's jubilant, joyful, fun. It's also very spiritual. It's like a spiritual teacher. It is wise, and it is enthusiastic about sharing that with us. It's abundance of all benefic Jupiterian things. Jupiter is the greater benefic in astrology, like the goodest of the good planets. And while Jupiter is in Pisces, that is one of its home signs. So Jupiter feels very comfortable there. It's like in its favorite place to be. And Pisces is a sign associated with spirituality, with intuition, with empathy and compassion. It's a water sign, so it's emotional and intuitive with others, with ourself, with our spiritual connection to the divine, to our spirit guides, even psychic abilities and things of that sort. And Pisces is very artsy. Pisces is creative, it's musical, it likes to dance and make beautiful art and things of that sort. It's dreamy and foggy, usually in a good way, we'll say. Occasionally that can dip into excess, but generally foggy, dreamy, cloudy, artsy-fartsy, good time. So when we put Jupiter in there, the planet that's the expansion, the abundance of Pisces, then this intuitive, watery connection. And that's going to feel generally nice for this whole time while Jupiter is in Pisces. And if anyone listening is maybe more intermediate or advanced with their astrological knowledge, you could look to the house or area of life in your birth chart where Pisces is for a hint about what things in your personal life might be expanding or having a dose of optimism or positivity. But if you don't know what I just said, just know that there's a dose of optimism and positivity and growth in all things spiritual and in connecting with each other in a more compassionate way.
Yes. Definitely needed with everything. And I think we all could use more compassion and connection.
Yeah, I agree. I'm over here as a Pisces rising, like, what does this mean for me? All of the things. So I am so curious. This
Hopefully
is great.
many good things.
Yeah, I'm excited to look more into my chart and to learn how to read my chart and things a little better. I know it might not correlate specifically with Jupiter, but I know you're going to go over charts and how to pull them up, how to figure out how to get yours and all of that fun stuff and Shine Online.
Shine Online.
Super excited.
Shine Online Festival 3 on 2/22/22 and forever after.
Yeah. So wrapping it up a little bit, I'm curious, do you have any tips or things that you've learned since you got into astrology? And this could just be kind of like a general waking up question. Like, what advice do you have for somebody who's just stumbling upon this podcast that might just be getting into astrology and like their spiritual journey? That kind of vibe. What's your BP advice? Anything specific?
Advice on where to look, or advice on
just general, like something you feel guided to share with somebody that is just waking up into their spiritual journey. It can be astro related or just like BP channeled advice.
Okay. I want to say, of course, I'd encourage this supposed listener to dive into astrology because it's a powerful tool to use when you need to navigate where your human ship is going, or you want to understand things about yourself or patterns you've seen, even in your life, if not within yourself. Sometimes that clarity on what a pattern is or dimensions of our personality and soul is life-changing, because with clarity, you can make more aligned decisions and then go forth in a way that feels much more fulfilling. It's one of my favorite things about astrology is its universal lens over us little peoples and our little lives. Sometimes that's a refreshing view to see it from a broad perspective or from the language of the stars and of planets, and to see them mirror us back to us. I mean, how magical. Jupiter is mirroring our spiritual growth to us, and you can see Jupiter in the sky. I find that to be a very connecting feeling, and one that's also pretty interesting when you start to dive in a more technical way and look into charts and maths and all of the things, or mythology and lore behind some of the archetypes involved with astrology. I would encourage anyone to go for that. And you may find that it's more than just interesting. It can be something that's very helpful in navigating through weird times and through good times. Yeah.
Love that.
Definitely a lot of both of those happening in this world.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I do like what you were saying, and I was having the thought earlier today even that just thinking in the perspective of a planet, like they live for millions of years, sometimes billions of years, and it's just so wild that, like, in our perspective, maybe the Milky Way galaxy and the Andromeda galaxy aren't that far apart, but to us it's like such a far thing. It just kind of blows my mind, the scale of existence.
Yeah, time is an interesting thing, but I think that's a good share, and I encourage people to do that too. Like, go into things that help expand your mind if you're going through an awakening, because sometimes you can open up those doors, you open up Pandora's box, and there's like so much, but there's also like the existential crisis of it all. Like, am I going crazy? But astrology is kind of like a nice grounding point, because it's something that a lot of people in the collective resonate with in some ways. Like, yeah, there's that rare person that's like, oh, I don't believe anything in astrology. It doesn't make any sense. But usually you look at their chart and you're like, well, I understand why you don't believe in it, but you definitely, resonate on a lot of those different collective trigger points as your sign would show. So I think it is like a more grounded and expansive pathway into spiritual realms. And there's so much content on it everywhere. It's wild, honestly.
Yeah, I almost hope that there's even more astrological content appearing in the world and educational resources, myself one of them, but just more of them. Because what you mentioned about sometimes when people are out and feeling like, I don't believe in astrology, it's usually because they may have heard something rather negative in pop astrology about perhaps their sign, but all of that is only based in a lack of education about astrology, which of course is not offered like just on the news or wherever they saw it, or from somebody's friend's older sister who said Virgo sucks or something of that sort. So without the education, how could you know this wealth of resources available to you, and that you're so much more than just a sun sign and you have all these layers and signs are complex. But usually it's just like a lack of education. If someone says, I don't believe in astrology, there's nothing to believe. It's just patterns. It's not that we say that they're, the correlation causation discussion is always a thing. But to anyone out there that even feels discouraged in astrology because maybe they are afraid of what they might find or have heard some rough things about maybe their placements, you can rest assured there is much more positive resources out there and a wealth of knowledge into the stars, if you will. I'm glad you brought that up because it's a pretty common feeling in the world.
Yeah, it's usually, like you said, they don't resonate with their sun sign, or someone along the lines has said something that's made them feel uncomfortable. And they don't realize that there's so many other layers to it. Like, where are all your houses placed? Where's your rising? What's your moon? Like, maybe there's a reason, like, if you're a Leo, you're a little more introverted. Maybe you're extroverted in certain ways because as a Leo, everyone's like, oh, they expect you to be, like, loud and proud about it. But I've known some that it's taken them a while to, like, step into that kind of energy because of where their other things are placed. It's pretty wild. So if somebody's overwhelmed with astrology in their chart and they want to work with you, how do they find you, and what do you have to offer them in the sense of that kind of offering?
Oh, okay. Well, let's start with Instagram. My Instagram is at BP Online. There are underscores, BP_online_. And that is a place on the internet, one of my professional locations, where there is maybe just years worth of free content, videos, graphic posts, etc., with usually transit related information, but relayed in a way that's incredibly beginner friendly. 0% astrological education required to use that content. And also my website is lunarcounseling.com. That has all of the offerings I have in terms of sessions, one-to-one sessions with clients. Particularly lunar node sessions are the most popular type of session, where we go through your lunar nodes in your birth chart and what that means for your soul's journey, for your past lives, for whatever problems or things you're working on. We can find very concrete guidance on them, even like things you can do in an hour of that session to align more with your natural energy and work with it instead of maybe accidentally against it or being unaware of it. It's very helpful to know. And there's a whole bunch of other types of sessions for beginners who just want to learn about their big placements in their birth chart, like sun, moon, rising, all of those. And there's some more advanced ones too for those who are more advanced and want to do karmic placements and all that stuff. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, I think your content is great, and you make it an easy way for people to learn. You just have a really beautiful energy, and you're just really cool. You're like this really cool, badass person, and so it's like exciting to learn from you in the podcast and like your content and everything that you do. So I highly encourage anybody interested to look you up and get a hold of you.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice. Oh, I should mention TikTok. I have a TikTok. It's at my name is BP. That is not a professional page, which is why sometimes I forget to mention it.
I love it.
Shannon loves it.
It's more of a personal page that turned into also some astrology education. It's a little bit of both. Or me making memes out of astrology or making fun of myself. But that's a place if you want to experience astrology in a more lighthearted or
comedic.
Just like just sort of a fun TikTok type of way, while still receiving accurate information or information based in a professional astrologer. You can check me out there. I do absolute nonsense.
You have a bunch of cute little moves that you do. Like, I don't know.
Transitions are so on point. I'm like, how does she get those transitions down? And I like seeing all the different sides. You do have like the more professional, like very structured, and then there's like the super more playful TikTok realm of BP land, and it's fun. It's entertaining. I love tagging people in your videos when I'm like, oh, yep, this resonates with the personality. This is great. It's very playful, and I feel like it's a good way to resonate and connect with people if they're like just getting into astrology and you want to explain things to them in a just a different kind of structure. Like you said, a comedic structure. It's very good. Good stuff. Yeah,
it's so fun.
So were there any other questions or anything you wanted to bring up today while we have her here today, Sibyl?
I guess, since we've been talking a lot about Shine Online, and Shine Online is about kind of uplifting people through the hard times and being empowered, I thought maybe we could all take a turn answering what helps to uplift us when maybe we're in a hard time.
Do you want to set the tone and let us know what is something that uplifts you, Sila?
Sure. I get uplifted very much so when I'm in nature. Like if I'm experiencing a hard time and I can getting into nature, like I literally don't have to do anything except for just go for a walk. I could just like take a seat and just breathe. Like I'll even allow any thoughts that I'm having to just flow into my mind and not like worry about them. You know, sometimes being distracted is a thing in meditation, but when I'm in nature, like I don't even care, because just existing in there is so healing. The trees are alive. Like there's just this, I don't know, this feeling of being out in nature, and that really helps me. I would say the most. And then obviously creativity is a thing that I'm really into. So writing, making music, listening to music even is very healing. So what about you, Shannon?
Well, you hit it with the creating. I really love getting to be creative, getting messy. I do not enjoy the cleaning up part, but the getting messy part, definitely my jam. Blasting music and painting and dancing is something that helps me in crazy times. Like if I know it's going to be a rough day, I'll just put on some really loud music, as loud as I can, and just like wiggle my whole body until I can go play in my art studio.
You love playing music in your car and singing really loud.
As loud as I can, and then forgetting to turn it down so that when CeeLo gets in my car to go to work, it just blasts him. Yeah, that's one of my signature moves.
At least I know you're having a good time, man. Okay.
Always. How about you, BP? What's something that lights you up and helps you through the crazy times?
Oh, you're about to hear a very stereotypical Capricorn Saturnian answer. Or perhaps it's I'll call it the South Node in Gemini, which has to do with what comforts us. So if I need to be comforted or uplifted, it's learning. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I will go and learn for fun about astrology or more advanced astrology concepts that I would never use professionally, that wouldn't be related to anything that I do. But for me, just like sitting down and absorbing a whole bunch of information and practicing with it is sometimes a nice distraction, but also something that feels exciting and uplifting and interesting. And just shows that there's more and more to learn and know. Very Capricorn, though, of course. It's like, yes, let's do some math for fun. Well,
I know people that like to read for fun. Yeah.
Were you a good student in elementary and middle and high school? Yeah.
me?
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. But it wasn't as enjoyable as being an adult and getting to choose what it is that you focus on in your studies.
Yeah, that's true. That's always nice.
Yeah, there's something different about choosing what you dive into versus
rather than being forced.
And if you realize, like, you learn the same things over and over in school, like, you know, you have like a version of algebra in like 5th grade and then again in like 7th grade and then again in like high school sometime. And I'm just like, didn't we already learn this, but in like a different form? Like, why do we have to keep doing these same things? We had U.S. history in multiple years and like it was very repetitive.
Yeah.
You're so right.
So repetitive.
Yeah. I would like to see schools like have a better way for kids to learn, like let kids just like decide what they kind of want to get into and maybe experiment with things. And, you know, like I feel like a lot of us go through our whole lives still trying to figure out like what we're really into. And so being forced as a kid to learn very specific things, half the things I don't think we use anymore.
No, we don't.
We so don't. And there's so many things I wish we would have learned, like balancing like bank accounts and doing the things that we need to as adults.
Yeah.
But I do also find it very interesting that we each have very different paths of things that light us up. So it does show how each person's so unique. You like being outside. Sometimes I love being outside. Sometimes I hate it.
I love being out in the snow.
Oh man, I hate snow. I'm not. Do you like snow, BP? Are you a snow fan?
I'm not a snow fan. And
I just love it.
While there's maybe like 2 feet of snow outside the window.
Yeah.
It just gets in the way.
It does. It's wet. It's cold.
No snow angels?
No. But that's something that's uplifting to me is that as you said earlier, the like warm times are coming. Jupiter's doing its thing. We've got stuff to look forward to. Shine Online is on its way.
Shine Online.
Beautiful. Well, I'm excited. I don't know if I have anything else to hype up or share. How are you feeling, BP? Is there anything channeling through you? Are you happy with your discussion?
Happy with the discussion, and I'm excited to check out all of the other cool things that are going on with the Shine Online Festival, because I know there's a lot of different people coming in with different angles and different expertise and different talents. I'm very excited just to check it all out, basically.
Yeah. And to do so, you all can tune into bringmetolife.com with the number 2. We're going to be mainly streaming it there. We're going to try to do it on some other platforms, but sometimes they kick us off. So bringmetolife.com is going to be the hub. We'll have a chat room there where you can change your name. It does give you a typical like mystical alias when you log into the chat, but you can change the name easily so we know who you are, and we would love to hear from you when that time comes. And
it's gonna start at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
And it's gonna go for quite a while. We got at least 6 workshops and several musicians and some other surprises to sprinkle in along the way. And if you need other uplifting content to keep you awake and shine in between now and then, there's articles and all kinds of fun stuff being posted pretty daily almost to the Bring Me to Life website. So lots of good stuff there.
Absolutely. So thank you, BP, for being on, coming back to the podcast and being involved with the Bring Me to Life network in general. And we just really appreciate you. So thank you for being on.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you to all who listened as well. It is a pleasure always talking with you.
Yay.
Beautiful. Well, everybody out there listening, I think it's time to stay awake.
And shine on always. For many of us, spirituality is just the quest to find essence or true meaning and to really just connect with a higher consciousness.
Connecting with your spirituality is very important in this life. By becoming mindful of all of it, you can realize where you are and if that is leading you to where you want to go.
Listen to the little simple things, because it's those little simple things that are going to shift you vibrationally in such a way that will prepare you to become very intuitively minded and ready to step forward on the next part of your path.
I hope you can feel the love that's inside you, it's inside me, that connects us.
Thanks for shining on with us.